Stop us anytime.
Stop the madness. Wow.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Welcome to the University of Oklahoma School of Music. My name is Max Yamane. I'm an assistant professor of ethnomusicology. I want to extend a very warm welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. We are pleased to present to you a co-presentation about the creation, development, and production of the Oscar-nominated song, Wajaje, A Song for My People, composed by Scott George and featured in Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. Before we begin, I would first like to thank and welcome citizens of the Osage Nation for being here tonight. The OU School of Music recognizes and honors the resiliency of the Osage people during one of the darkest chapters of this state's history, the Reign of Terror. Events like this tonight are important in amplifying Osage voices, stories, and songs. We are appreciative that Scott George and his transcriber, Mo Pear, have graciously given their time to be here tonight to share their experiences and perspectives. This event could not have happened without the kind generosity of our co-sponsors. First, the School of Music's Norton Lecture Series, organized by Dr. Jeff Swinken. Native American Studies Emerging Vision Series, organized by Dr. Farina King. School of Music Resident Series, organized by Professor Eric Welshop. The OU Arts and Humanities Forum, organized by Dr. Kim Marshall. And also the Faculty Investment Program. Can we give a round of applause to our sponsors? All right, so I'll go ahead and hand it off to Scott and Mo to briefly introduce themselves.
Okay. So I'm Scott George. I'm an Osage tribal member. I grew up in Yamane, Oklahoma, on the what we refer to as the Zonzoli district, but my family members are from the Pasoli district in Gray Horse. And so I'm torn between both of them, and I also spent a little time growing up in Pawhuska in enemy territory up there with the Huskies. So that's the three districts of Osage country there, and I've been a part of all of it, and served as their head singer and in several of our dances, and so, you know, I've given my life basically to being a singer for my people.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marvin Pear. A lot of folks call me Mo. Sometimes when I sing with natives here in Oklahoma, I've been known as Doogie. And but I'm real honored to be here. I've been in music all my life. As a profession, I'm an engineer in the United States Air Force, but I never could get away from the music, and I'm very honored and privileged to have sung with Oklahoma natives since I was a young man, and so I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Tonight, we are going to each take turns to share the journey that Wajaje took in the Academy Awards. We will first start with Scott, then go to Mo. I'll give a ethnomusicological critique of the Academy Awards. And then we have a guest, Gigi Siki, who will share some reflections at the end. She is also the OU princess and is also chairing the OU powwow. But before we begin, let's take a look at Scott and his drum group's performance of Wajaje on March 10th, 2024 at the Academy Awards ceremony, just over a year ago. That is crazy. That just happened just over a year ago. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Scott. How did the song come about, and whatever you'd like to say about Wajaje?
So we watched the Oscars a couple of nights ago, and it was like, can't hardly believe it was a year ago that we had that opportunity to sit up there. And it was like, we know that stage, we know the underneath of the stage where we were at, and behind the stage, and there are actually more people behind that stage than there are in the crowd. It's crazy how many people were around there with name tags and everything else. Every time you walk through there, Scott, are you Scott George? Yes. Come with us. We have to go over here and do this, go do that. So it was quite an experience. We were asked to create this song, or we're asked to provide a song for the movie through Martin Scorsese, and they had approached us, after one of our dances and talked to us about it, and we kind of knew it was coming. They had already been filming. They had already been basically putting the finishing touches on it. But during our dances in Grey Horse, it was on a Saturday night. I think we were sitting out there singing, me and my singers, and we noticed Martin Scorsese and several of them sitting up in the stands watching us. And it was at that point I kind of knew then, uh-oh, they're going to be asking something from us, And that's why I told my singers, I said, look up there. I said, there he is. He's sitting up there. And he got up and he went up in the bleachers a little higher so he could listen, moved around a couple of times. And after that they went to Yamane and then went to Pahuska. So it was one of those things that you could just tell he was thinking about all this, what he was seeing. And if you've never been to our dances, we have our ceremonial dances are in June. We have 3 different weekends in June that we dance on, and somewhere upwards of 300 plus straight dancers come out there to dance around our drum. And we sing 7 sessions and of songs there, and it's quite an endeavor, and we put it on every year. I don't know that our drum keepers realize what they put together every year. That it's throughout the year, our people are strung around and live in different places and working, but that dance goes on every year. And that power and the things that Martin was trying to see or get a hold of, it got a hold of him. We know that it did. It got a hold of him because he wanted it. And so it was a little later on during the year, they went through Van Big Horse. And Van Big Horse was the director for our cultural programs, our language programs. He called me and his brother, Kenny Big Horse, and said they're going to want us to do something. And we're like, well, okay, like what? What do you want? What is it they want? He said, well, they're talking about having a celebration dance at the end, and then filming that, and then putting that at the end of the movie. I said, well, okay. And so we never talked directly to Martin or even Robbie Robertson at the time. But we talked through his liaisons, and they talked through Van, and the machine that is Apple. They coordinated almost everything that went on. So they started asking us, well, what song are you going to use? And if you don't know anything about our music is shared and borrowed from the Ponca Nation. All of our music basically came from them. Our music, the Osage music, was put away a long time ago. And so that relationship came from back in the 1800s, late 1800s, where the Ponca people started bringing their drum and their music to us. And they were our neighbors across the river. And so they brought that music to us, and we've used it ever since. It's become ours. And we're all relatives, so that that's the way we see it, that, it's our music. But when they come and ask us, okay, what are you going to sing? What do you want to sing? What can you sing? We started going through all the music that we know and realized that we weren't going to be able to use any of it. All of those songs that the Ponca people have, they have names in them. And those names have relatives that are still there today that can relate back to those. That's my great-grandpa. That's my people like that. So we knew that was going to be out. And there's popular songs in there that they get sung at powwows, nobody says anything, but I told my brothers, I said, I guarantee you put it in a movie, somebody's going to say something. I said, so we have to leave it alone. So we did. So we thought, well, what are we going to do? So Van and I and Kenny Bob, Big Horse, we were talking about it. We're just going to have to create our own song. And so, well, I guess so. And he said, well, so I drive back and forth. I work in Shawnee for the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, and I drive back and forth every day, have for 20 years now. And Van, he works there in Pahuska, and he just moved to Ponca City, so we're going back and forth like this. And usually in the morning is when my music comes to me. I'm either listening to it or kind of obscene, but I'm getting in the shower and I can hear it. A tune will come to me, and I don't know where it came from. It'll come with me, stay with me all day long. And so I finally wind up having to call somebody. And Native music is like that. It's not written down anywhere. It's shared by a collective of men and women that use their recollection to bring it out. And so when you make a song, you have to rely on your friends and your acquaintances and your other singers to tell you, is this something I've just made, or is this an old song that I heard when I was 14, 15 years old, and it's just now coming back to me? So we would drive back and forth, and we started figuring out what we wanted to say in this song. And Van was thinking the same thing. And he'd come up with a little tune, and we'd listen to it, and that sounds like that one song that we sing on Thursdays. I said, you're right. And then I'd do the same thing. So we did that process for about a month and a half. About every day we were calling each other, and then finally I got a hold of a song, or what I thought was a tune that I hadn't heard before. And it's when you make a song, you have to pray about it. Our Indian people, we believe that it's not us that created it, that it's our God, the Creator, gave it to you. And so you go and ask for that. You think about it. You ask about it. Whatever the purpose of that song is for. It might be, most generally, it's for somebody else, to honor somebody. And that's the only reason we make those songs. It's changed a little bit over the years, but for the most part, that's the reason why our people make songs, is to honor somebody else. And so from all that time, we were riding back and forth doing that, trading tunes back and forth. And then finally I come on a tune that I wanted, and I called him up and I said, what about this? And I sang it to him. He said, I've never heard that. And I said, okay. So I called another one of my friends. I said, let me sing this to you and let me know what you think. And I sang it to him over the phone. He said, man, I've never heard that before. And I said, okay. All right. And then we started trying to find the words that we wanted to say in there, and we started putting those in there. And that's not, one of the things we found as we're trying to make this music is that our language just fits in there. It was made for that, which reinforces the fact that it's a God-given present that He gives us. That language that we have, you can put any word in there, any part of our language in there, and it'll fall within that beat, just really simple. And so at that point, that's where we were at. And so we called, and he had a song and I had a song, and we got together and got our singers together and started practicing. And then we called Apple and said, okay, I said, we've got 2 songs. I said, you choose. We're not going to choose. You choose what you want. And so it's our understanding at that point that Martin and Robbie Robertson listened to them and then chose the one that I made. And to me, it's by chance that it could have been Van's song, you know, that was in there. So at that point, they said, okay, we're going to go up on the hill here. We're going to have this celebration. We want you to come up there. And this was during COVID, so we had COVID protocols, all kinds of stuff going on. They had before we could even go up on the hill, we had to go get tested. And you might know I tested positive that morning. So everybody was sitting up on the hill waiting for me and calling me, hey, where you at? So I'm down here in the tent, and I'm positive. What? Are you kidding me? No, I'm not. And so we were sitting there, and I said, well, sometimes it can, you know, be a false positive. Let's test you again. So they tested me again in about 30 minutes or an hour, and sure enough, it was negative. So we shot up there, went up on the hill, and the sun was about to go down, and we got in there and practiced singing. And the next day we were going to come back, and that's when we were going to put on this celebration. So we started with dinner, or had a big noon meal, and you know, huge. It was a huge. If those of you that were there, it was a huge undertaking. And then they moved us all over into a space between the agency and the clinics, and we got over there, and they had about a 100-foot crane, I guess, and they were telling us, okay, we're gonna lower this camera down in front of, right over the top of that drum, and then when you start singing, we're gonna raise it up. And you know, all this time we were all dressed up, and everybody had their finest singing clothes on, you know, and they ran that camera up, and so we had dancers around there, and we sang it about 4 or 5 times, and then Martin and Adam Somner was his, who's deceased now. He was his assistant director. He got a hold of us. He said, "Come back here and take a look at this, see what you think." So Kenny Bob and I went back there like we knew what we were doing. Sat in the director's chairs, you know, and looked in there and looked at it, you know, and yeah, it looks okay. It looks pretty good. Well, the first thing I noticed is all you're seeing is the top of our heads. And damn, it's a good thing you guys wore a hat. Well, so all of us are getting up in age and getting kind of sparse up here on top. But you know, so we went through that process, and then and from there, you know, we thought that was going to be it. You know, that was fun, and so we'll just wait for the movie to come out. And it seemed like it never did come out. And then we finally had one of the first premieres was in Tulsa. All of our Osage people were invited to that, and they wanted us to sing for it. So we got up on the stage and sang for the premiere, at the premiere. And then got to meet several of the actors and actresses, and pretty much everybody but Robert De Niro was there. I think he had lost his grandson, as I understood it, so he wasn't around. But they were amazing people, you know, to meet, and interesting people to meet, and were interested in our people. They were fascinated by who we are and what we were doing and how we've maintained what we have. And so good conversations throughout all that. And there again, that ended, and we thought, well, that was fun. Let's go back to our usual life, you know. And so we went on, and then pretty soon, here come the writers' strike, the Actors and Writers Guild, that they went on strike. And that's going to be interesting. So then we get phone calls from Apple wanting to know, okay, well, since we don't have any actors, we want the tribe, several of your singers, to come out here. And I said, come out where? Well, the first one was New York City. And I'm like, okay. I guess I can take off and go to New York City. So I started calling everybody, and of course, yeah, let's go. So everybody was on to go to New York City. And we didn't know that at the time, but come to find out that Apple is kind of looked down upon as being spoiled by all the rest of the other movie producers, because they spare no expense at anything. Everything they did was above board. Everything they did, from picking us up in limos to taking us to the airport, and it was just crazy. And now that some of the other actors and some of the other people have stayed with the music business, or not music business, but the film business, are finding out that that's not everybody that does that. You know, Paramount, all those others are like, well, yeah, you got to get your own way there, and you know, so it's kind of different. So, so we went through there. We went through New York. We performed in New York City there right before the movie opened, and then Martin come out and introduced the movie. And there again, we thought, okay, well, that was fun. I'll never get to do that again. So we moved on, and then they call us again. And usually call us about 2 days before it's time to go, you know. And it's like, wow, okay, who's gonna get the tickets ready and all that stuff. The next day somebody calls you and say, all right, here's your itinerary, and we even got to know one of the limo drivers. He had, his name was, what was it? Icky, yeah, his name was Icky. And he had either picked us up or he picked up Kenny Bob and them Huska, so they were always talking back and forth. You know, say, hey, did you get Icky this time? Yeah, I did. Boy, he was really telling us everything going on. But so we went to LA and performed on the red carpet there in front of everybody, and I think that's the one that's on YouTube there. And it was a blast, and I don't know how they got us all in that little bitty space from here to the end of that stage right there. And basically all the tribal members that got to go, and our drum, and there were people stopping on Hollywood Boulevard. It's not Hollywood Boulevard, I'm not sure what street that is. Anyway, the cars were stopping and people were getting out to watch us, and it's like, dang, that was pretty cool. So one of the funny things is we're going in, you know, the people are lined up at the red carpet just like they do anywhere else for these big premieres. And they're kind of looking at us like, who are you guys, you know? Because they're looking for all the actors, you know, the actors are gone. So we just kind of waved at them and walked on in, and we performed in there, same thing. And then when we got back, it was kind of a lull. And I was going to go to Chicago to sing for a hobbyist group up there, and they have a tail dance that we go sing for. And I got a call from Apple, and they said, we want you to fill out the application for to put this song in there as the best original song. And I'm like, okay, well, just send me the paperwork and I'll do that. So I looked at it, and it was about 3 pages worth of it. And I said, okay, I'll fill it out. And then the last part of it said, well, we needed a lead sheet. I'm like, lead sheet, okay. Let me Google that up, see what the hell that is. Lead sheet, okay. So I found out what that is, and I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do that. So I called Chad Renfro. If you don't know Chad Renfro, he was our liaison, and for the Osage liaison with the movie. And if it wasn't for him, a lot of stuff wouldn't have gotten done. He was amazing. And so I called him and I said, we're going to have a problem. I said, this calls for a lead sheet. It's written music. I said, I don't think we can write this down. And I said, well, let me call Apple. So he called Apple, and they called back. And I said, well, we're going to get you in touch with the guy and this weekend, and he's going to start on it. Well, that was the weekend before it's due. And so I go to Chicago, and he texts me while I'm in there, and I land, and his text is there, and I'm like, so I tried to call him all weekend long, and he never would respond. He never would text back. And Monday morning, he texts back, and to me and one of the Apple representatives, I can't do this. I'm like, okay, now what? So again, I reached out to them, and I said, well, I think I know somebody that might be able to do this. Really? Who is this? And I said, well, I have a friend that I met many years ago, and he presented to me one time while we were at a dance, some sheet music that he had written, and actually played it for me. And we went that evening and listened to him play it. I said, well, who is this? His name is Marvin Pear, and he lives down in Austin. And I said, I know a guy, I was just singing with him in Chicago. I know a guy that knows him and how to get a hold of him. Well, try it and see what happens. I said, all right. So I called my friend and I said, you got Marvin's number? He said, yeah. And he said, all right. So he sent it to me, and I called Mo. And I'm sure he was like, who the heck is this, you know? So I called him and I asked him, I said, Mo, you know, I said, I've got a favor to ask of you. And I said, this song that we created, I said, they want to put it in a lead sheet. And, you know, they had somebody that they were supposed to hook us up with, and he backed out of it, couldn't do it. And Mo was kind of quiet at the time. He didn't say much, and I didn't know if he was, couldn't believe what I was asking him, or, you know, or what was going on there. And finally he answered me, and he said he'd be honored to. And I said, okay, well, here's the kicker. He said, what's that? And I said, well, it's due this weekend. And this was Tuesday, I think, Monday or Tuesday, wasn't it? You know, and he said, oh, wow. He said, that's pretty tight. I said, yeah. I said, well, I'll write it out for you. I'll write the vocals out for you. And I'll send you a copy of what I have as far as the music goes. And sent it to him. I had to go to work the next day to do that. I can't do it from home. And at that point, he calls me back. It was the next night, wasn't it? I think when you had already got about a third of the way done.
Yeah, I was getting into it. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was kind of rough. But it was like riding a bike. You know, I hadn't done it in a while. But I had to, oh yeah. Anyway, yeah. Whether I was going to get the job or not, I was going to do it because I was all riled up about it. I mean, so anyway.
So we actually, you know, it's towards the end of it, and he said, it was that evening, he said, Scott, I think I can do this. I can do this. I've got about a third of it done already. And I said, wow, okay. So he said, how do you want it presented? And I said, well, I don't really know. I said, you know, I think you probably need to make some notes on it, you know, add our music to it, or add our vocals to it. And so he worked on it until, was it Thursday or Friday that we finished with it?
I think I was about Friday.
I think so, yeah. So we called it, and I kept looking online at the deadlines, and the deadline had already passed, and I'm like, what, maybe it's not this deadline, maybe it's another deadline, you know, because you really, if you've ever been to their website, it doesn't really give you a lot of information. But anyway, so we got through that, got it, Mo sent it to me, we sent it to Apple. You know, we had a guy that was coordinating with us, and I'll let Mo tell you about him. He was trying to lowball him a little bit, but we wanted to make sure he got some kind of money out of it, you know, not just do this for free, because I know the guy that was wherever he was at would have gotten paid, you know, so I wanted to make sure that happened, and so I'll let him tell you about that part of it.
All right, so Mo, your turn.
Oh, yeah, thanks everybody. Well, yeah, he was saying that we got on a phone call, right? It was me and Scott and Apple, and the guy was, yeah, I'll just throw the numbers out there, right? And well, he said, well, it's about $150, and I said, well, I have to talk to my wife about that, I told him. And then we worked him up to 500, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then I said, Scott, does that seem right? Scott, yeah, it's okay. And then, but then Scott and Chad went to bat for me, and they got me $1,000 out of it. So that really helps out. As I got my loving wife, Bianca Parrish. She might be listening to this. Hi, and the boys too. Got 3 little boys. So, you know, any kind of bread that we can pull in's mighty need that. You know what I mean. So it's my turn, huh? All right. Well, I'm not native. So I've had the honor, as I said earlier, to sing with natives. They've let me sit with them, and I've learned from them. And my primary teacher was a Ponca man named Harry Buffalo Head. And when I was 20, I think that's probably when we met. It was a caw dance?
Yeah.
I would go and sing with Harry, and he'd put me on his left, and if I wasn't making a noise, he'd hit me on the shin with his stick. And he'd say, "Sing!" like that. He didn't care if I didn't know any words or any vocable or any tune. If I wasn't making a noise, he'd hit me. So it was a severe master-apprentice situation. And you laugh, but it was. I'd never been in anything like that before, nor since. But I had been trying to sing this kind of music since I was a little kid, and then some fella who was much better singer than me, his name's Bo Limbaugh, I don't think he's here, he was threatening to come, but he took me aside when I was about 19. He said, "You know, you're not doing this right." I said, "Really? No one told me there was a right way to do it." He said, "No, you're not." And so I listened to him, and then here a year later, I was living in the apartment of Harry Buffalo Head. And Harry Buffalo Head flat told me, he said, "Look, there's only one way to sing a song, and that's the right way. Period." So, you know, what we're talking about here, I'll just call it plains music, North American plains music. And I'm here to tell you that I know folks say that jazz is American music and whatnot, but I'm here to, the way I see it, there's nothing more American than this music right here. And I'm real happy and I'll say honored again to be a part of having this music get its rightful place and get recognized in front of the nation from whence this music comes. And it was real satisfying for me to see that happen at the Oscars, to have it given its rightful place, because it's been denigrated a long time, and it's about time that someone recognized it for the good American art form that it is. And so, yeah, I think so. So I learned a lot from Harry Buffalo Head, and after a month with staying with him, he told me, "You can't call me Harry anymore. You got to call me by a relation, and then you got to tell me why." And I thought, well, I never had a grandpa, so I started calling him Grandpa, and I really meant it, because I didn't have one, and so I would wait on him. He wasn't doing very well, and so, but we had made this arrangement, and I was to pay him, and whatever he needed, and then he would give me songs, and it would never end. And so if, girlfriend needed water pump, he needed electric bill, I took care of it. And so, but I thought of it in terms of like he was my real grandpa. It was a pretty serious deal. The other thing that I learned that I didn't expect, that there was a people behind this music. Because when I went and stayed with Grandpa Harry, I was in the community of White Eagle, and I was just this white kid from the suburbs, and I didn't know anything about any of this. But those folks took me in, and before I knew it, there were like these elderly Ponca ladies living in the apartments next to him. I started calling them Aunt, and they started calling me Sonny, and I never expected any of that to happen. I never expected to be accepted by anybody. Here I am, a white kid. Columbus just came yesterday, it seemed like, to some of these folks. And so I felt like I was the enemy, but they didn't treat me like that at all. They showed me a lot of love, and they accepted me. And that meant an awful lot to me. So and now, after saying that, and then they let me sit, like I said, sit with them and learn the songs and sing with them. And that was, I'm telling you, if you never sat on those drums here in Oklahoma, it's much better than any rock and roll band you'll be in. I know that too. And so, so I kept writing the music. They taught me how to read music in the high school band, and my dad played bluegrass music, so I was always around it. And I kept writing it, and I liked that 5-bar staff and that treble clef and the bass clef and all that stuff, you know, and the notes and the intervals, you know. And I got to where you know what I used to find a fifth? I'm gonna get nerdy on you now. You know, y'all know Star Trek? You know that when the Klingons come, do 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 do, that's a fifth. So just so you don't know, I've always wanted to say that. Okay. So anyway, but after singing Plains music, I thought, what if you could put the Plains music in the Western scale? I really thought about that for a long time. I slept on it. You can say I prayed about it. And then I started reading the early ethnographies from the 19th century, and I found this here quote from John Comfort Fillmore. I quote, "I know of no greater rhythmic difficulties anywhere in our modern music than these Omahas have completely at command in their everyday music. It seems to be as natural and easy for them to beat 2 and sing 3, and that too in all sorts of syncopation and complex combinations, as though they had received the most thorough rhythmical training to be had in any conservatory in the world." Bingo. And when I read that, my mind started to turn, and then I'd heard other singers say, they're singing triplets. So I really thought about it. And then I was 2005 in Beaumont, Texas. I sat upright in my bed about 4 in the morning, and I had it. It felt like, as Scott said earlier, he kind of nailed it. He said, this stuff is given. And I felt like this had been given to me. If you look up there, that's what I call a classic hemiola. That's a classic polyrhythm there, and it goes like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You know what I mean? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. My snap there is that bottom, the duple. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You know what I mean? Now, what was given to me in the dream, and what I sat upright, bolt upright at 4 in the morning, is the bottom piece. That's that beat 2, sing 3. It goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. See what I mean? It shifted. See how the triplet shifted over a sixth of a beat to where now it's the second notes that fall together. 1, 2, 3. Can you dig it? You got to dig it because it's all about making a body move. And that's another thing that Grandpa Harry taught me. He said, if you can make the disabled or the elderly rise out of your chair, it's the greatest thing you can do. And I've seen that. It's mighty powerful when it happens. And I was talking to another musician the other day, and I said, yeah, it's kind of behind a little bit. You see, it's behind off the beat. He said, oh, kind of like rhythm and blues. I said, yeah, it's because you got to make a body move. So you got to, something about syncopation that makes a body move, and that's kind of, that's what it's all about, if you will. So I got to charting this stuff. I ran with my idea there that was given to me. Oh, yeah, so when Scott when he pitched me the job, which is, I can't imagine a job like this. What, transcribing something for the Oscars? I'll never get another gig like that, you know. Thanks. Thinking of, wow, man. So that's me. We had this dialogue, me and Scott did, when he was saying that there was a week there when I was working it out, and I was taking snapshots. Look, Scott, this is where I'm at. I'd text it to him, you know. And those are pictures of the text. See how that's me with my recorder flute up there and my pencil. You know, real high-tech stuff here. I'm telling you, that recorder flute's a good instrument. Don't deny it. And that chart paper, see, I'm fighting around with it up there. You know what the hardest part was finding that first note. I couldn't find out. I'm up there like I think there's stuff crossed out. But look there, on that, here on the right there, that third line down, I finally found out what that first note is. You see what it is? Y'all tell me, you music folks, what's that first note on the third line? That there's a pickup note. That's what the first note was. And you know what you said the other day? He don't even sing that note anymore. But that was the hardest note to find. When I finally, it took me an hour. I was over here, you know, I'm like, my wife, she's looking at me like I'm nuts or something, you know. What are you? I made that last part up. But, I finally, when I got that last note, I was off to the races, and I had the thing done by the deadline, and then I gave them a write-up, and that's the completed score that I provided to the Oscars and to Scott, and I tell you what, when I got to watch the Oscars with my friends, we were on the edges of our seats, and Billie Eilish took it, so goes the world. But later on, I did see a clip of some Osage tribal members watching it in some hall, and they were, and I saw how elated they were, and I felt so good to know that the white fella I was a part of that process, and how I got to serve the Osage people meant so much to me. And again, I'm so happy to be here, and that I got the honor and opportunity to do this for the Osage people, and that they get the recognition they deserve. Thank you, everyone.
I guess it's my turn. All right, we're going to get nerdy again. My analysis of the events that unfolded at the Academy Awards describes the clash between indigenous ways of music and settler colonial ways of music. As a fundamental commonality amongst many indigenous music cultures, ethnomusicologist and Native American studies scholar Jessica Bizet-Perea describes that, quote, for indigenous peoples, all modes of performance, storytelling, singing, drumming, dancing, are inextricably intertwined with all other aspects of life, end quote. Osage music, dance, and storytelling are interconnected and important elements to what it means to be Osage. The song Wajaje carries deep meanings and reflects the history of resilience among the Osage people. Anthropologist Patrick Wolf and Kanaka Maoli scholar and activist Juanani K. Trask advocated for a now widely recognized conceptual shift, framing colonialism as an ongoing process rather than a singular event. Settler colonialism also manifests in realms of music and sound, especially in Western musical systems. I follow in the footsteps of Stalo musicologist Dylan Robinson, who uncovers how settler colonialism shapes the ways in which settlers listen, something that he calls hungry listening. According to the Stalo people, in what is now known as British Columbia in Canada, the white settlers who first came were starving because they didn't know how to live with the land. Similar to the Wampanoag, the Stalo fed them, But soon, settlers became hungry for more. They became hungry for land and resources. Their hunger was never satisfied. Robinson uses his tribe's way of knowing to set the foundation for understanding the ways in which settlers listen and the ways that they don't listen. He akins settler ways of listening to settler hunger. He uncovers a range of appetites, such as desires for sweetness, such as reconciliation, or in other words, a settler desire for escaping the guilt of committing genocide against indigenous communities, desires for bitterness, an apathy or ten ear against indigenous voices, musical practices, and musical structures. Part of this range of pernicious indulgences is what Dylan calls inclusionary performances. Performances that are based in Western art music that include indigenous performers, yet remain apathetic to indigenous ways of making music. There is an imbalance of power between settler ways of music that are imposed on indigenous ways of music. I show how hungry listening is prevalent at the Academy Awards, one of the most prestigious institutions of film and cinema. Namely, my critique is on the Academy Awards to mandate the transcription of wajaje, as well as the Academy Awards music branch's evaluation of the song through settler ears. My first main point is that settler ways of music making privileges writing, whereas most native forms of music making privilege orality. The Academy Awards requirement for a lead sheet promotes settler privileging of written music. A lead sheet, in a nutshell, is a written transcript in Western notation that shows the main musical ideas of a piece, including its time signature, harmonic key, harmonic chord progressions, and written lyrics. Essentially, it's like an abstract for a song. But it cannot fully capture all elements of a musical performance. Western music and Osage music are incommensurable, meaning that they are two complete separate systems of music and that the two do not translate well together. I know that Osages know this, but it begs repeating that each component of Osage musical and dance performance have deep connections to Osage identity. Settler notation does not accurately reflect the performance of Osage music. What is left out are several important performance elements, such as the spirit of the song, the good feelings that are shared among the community, the timbre of the song, the monophonic blending of the voices at the drum singing in harmony, and the context of the song. Osage songs are rendered to perform actions and are done in specific contexts. Written music cannot convey, nor do I think it should convey, the musical knowledge that is embedded within each song. While I am not Osage, I do know that Osage singers don't use written music at all. Everything is learned from ear, and musical knowledge is embodied by each singer, just as Scott talked about. The Academy Awards nomination process assumes a position that all music is universal and can be easily translated. As Scott and Mo have described, in speaking as a music scholar or a music nerd, this is simply not the case. The Academy Awards did not account for Osage musicality in its nomination process. Therefore, Scott and Mo had to navigate across this barrier by writing Osage music in Western notation. My second point is that the Academy Awards evaluated Osage music through settler ears. Positioning Osage music against Western film and popular music is like trying to compare apples to oranges, or in this context, comparing Osage grape dumplings to French brie cheese. The two are equally delicious to their respective cultures, but belong to two completely different palates. This is the same case in evaluating wajaje. Scott's musical excellence cannot be equally or fairly compared to Billie Eilish's musical excellence. Additionally, I question how settler evaluators, most who I'm going to assume, likely have no experience or knowledge about indigenous musical cultures, how they can properly evaluate Osage music. Adjudicating Osage music through settler ears is problematic. If there were many non-native evaluators, they probably didn't understand what to look for because they didn't likely have any knowledge base to go off of. I am curious if the Academy Awards even reached out to the Osage Nation at all throughout the duration of the evaluation process. As a music scholar, I have a few recommendations for the Academy Awards. First and foremost, Indigenous peoples need to have a seat at the table. I am assuming that the Academy Awards music branch is mainly made up, if not entirely, of non-natives, and I speculate that there may not have been fair representation among the pool of evaluators. Settler colonial film institutions may include Indigenous musics, but yet remain apathetic towards Indigenous ways of music making, as is evidenced by the mandate for the lead sheet. Second, I think, possibly, again just speculating, that perhaps maybe a separate category for Indigenous music could potentially help navigate around the issue of musical incommensurability. If this were to happen, it would need to be by, with, and for Indigenous peoples. Yet there still is the issue that even Indigenous musics are vastly diverse. Indigenous musics are not a monolith. Lastly, there are a plethora of musical styles and genres throughout the world. While the Academy Awards is a reflection and producer of settler colonial hegemony, or in other words, Western cultural domination, the Academy Awards platform could be used to elevate diverse perspectives, voices, stories, and styles of music. Musical excellence exists throughout the world, and the Academy Awards could amplify it. Now, scholars are supposed to have quibbles and critiques. Let me now talk about the positives. As you all know, Scott's nomination was a milestone for Native musical representation in film. While I personally would have liked to seen Killers of the Flower Moon told from the perspective of Molly, as I know some folks who worked on the film also feel the same way, the celebrity status of Martin Scorsese, Martin De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, and now the emerging star of Indian country, Lily Gladstone, created a platform to tell the Osage story about the Reign of Terror. The quality and collaboration and consultation with the Osage Nation sets Killers of the Flower Moon apart from other films written and directed by non-natives. While Scott did not win the award, he won in the hearts of thousands of Indigenous peoples throughout the world. I also want to comment on Mo's contribution to the nomination of Wajaji and highlight that his transcription of the song was done out of love and support for the Osage people. I strongly believe that Mo's contribution is an excellent example of non-native musical allyship. Mo responded to a community request and was able to use the tools of Western musicality to bring Osage song on a transnational stage. And lastly, another positive change happened towards the end of the Academy Awards. And Scott, would you like to mention what happened at the end?
Yeah. So we were required to go to a luncheon before the Academy Awards. And we attended it. I attended it with Chad. And all of the nominees from every category were there at this luncheon. And you walk through the same path that you see on TV, you take pictures and all that stuff. And you know, you get the feeling as a little Osage boy from Yamane, Oklahoma, it's like, what am I doing here? So you walk through that deal, and they're telling you, just stand right there, and then flash, 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 and you know, it's amazing how dominant those people are, those photographers are, because they're like this all the time, moving through that. So you go through that whole process, and we got to go in there and sit down and eat. And while we were eating, a lady was sitting on the opposite side of our table. Her name was Leslie Barber, and so she is the president of the music branch of the Academy, and somebody that Chad had an acquaintance with. And so he said, I want you to meet this lady. And I said, okay. And if you can imagine, every person that wanted to be recognized by Leslie Barber was standing in line to try to shake her hand and say, you know, remember me, basically, get their face in front of her. And so she went through at least 8, 9 people. And when finally she just got up, and there was 4 or 5 of them still standing there. She got up and walked around the table and walked and stood next to me, and Chad and I both stood up, and she said, I wanted to introduce myself. And so my name's Leslie Barber, and I understand you're Scott George. And I said, yes, I am. She said, so I just want to tell you that on behalf of the Academy and my branch, you should never have had to do that, what you did. And from here on out, we won't require it. She said that I understand what you had to go through, that you were lucky to have known somebody for a long time that was able to do that. And and I told her, I said, well, we come from a way of life that on our end of it, if you don't meet and rise all the recommendations and all the stipulations, then somebody's going to slight you. And I said, so we were going to find a way to get it done. So that was the story behind it. So I would imagine, of course, I had other reporters and things like that call us, well, you're going to quit your day job now? And I said, no, probably not. No, you're going to, I mean, you're an Academy Award nominee? And I said, yeah. And I said, well, I'm sure they'll be doing other Native American, themes and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, unless they do one about Osages, you won't be calling me. And they just kind of looked at me like, what do you mean? I said, well, there's 575 federally recognized tribes. If they do one story about any one of those 575 recognized tribes, they're going to go get their singers, not me. Oh. So they're, like you were saying, they lump us all together. They think that we're all the same, and we're not.
Absolutely. Well, we have a couple more minutes, so I'm going to invite a special guest, Gigi, if you would like to come to the stage, share a few minutes of your reflection and why the nomination of Wajaje was important. So Gigi is the current OU princess. She's also on the powwow committee. Please give her a round of applause. Take it away.
Thank you. I guess I'll take your seat. Hello everyone. My name is Gigi Siki. I am Osage, Sac and Fox, and absentee Shawnee, and I come from the Gray Horse District. That is the same district as the sisters in the movie Killers of the Flower Moon. During the time of filming, I was the Osage Princess. I held that title for 2 years. COVID kind of granted me that. And it was a crazy experience. I remember I was invited to a few things. First was the first day of filming, where I performed the Lord's Prayer in Indian Sign Language. And I got to meet all of the actors and actresses and Martin Scorsese and his amazing wife and all these people in the background. And I got to really appreciate what they put into telling these stories, and then as time kept going by, I graduated high school. Literally the day after my graduation was when we had the dance scene up on the hill. That was crazy. That was the first time I heard the song, Wajaje, and it made me feel really proud to be Osage and to be Native American. And being able to go through this whole process, after I gave up my title, I was still recognized as being Osage Princess, especially during the filming. And so I was able to attend the New York City premiere and the LA premiere, and the first one in Tulsa. And so that kind of was open to a few of the Osage tribal members and people that represent the Osage Nation. And I was able to talk to people about how, we're making this impact right now. Martin and Apple and Chad Renfro and all these amazing people that helped us out along this journey. We're able to tell our history. Then once I went to New York and LA, I talked to a lot of press because, actors, there was the writing strike and everything, and so they asked me to attend. Martin wanted me to be there, and I showed up, and I again told them how proud I was of the nation, of our people, how we've continued to be resilient and strong and show the world that we're still here. I thought it was really important that, that was being discussed. And once I found out that, Scott, his song was being, honored, and, the Academy wanted and nominated, it was nominated by the Academy, and, that really impacted our nation, that impacted our people. These songs are our way of life. We have our ceremonies. We're a war society. And it's supposed to honor our men. And a lot of the songs, the Ponca people help us. And this was a Wajaji original, this was so we have that ownership. We have that. And it's really important because, those songs do honor certain people in our tribe and in other tribes. And, we have War Mothers, which is our war society. There's a group in Gray Horse and a group in Hominy. And, we honor our veterans that way, And so this song really honored us as Osage people. And like you said, it does talk about our resiliency. And, that movie, that last scene in it shows the drum, and it shows all of us dancing. And I'm going to cry because, that's really powerful if you can see it from our perspective. It showed how, all this terrible stuff happened to us. We were killed for our land and our money. And we are still here, I can't say it enough. We are resilient. All Native people, we've been moved from our homelands. We've had to lose a lot of our language. This song is so important because also during this time we're working on our language revitalization. We have all these efforts going into place. We have our DePosca, which is our Osage immersion school, where our children are able to learn Osage, learn our language. We usually sweep at the language fair every year, but that's something to take pride in. We are continuing to grow as people. Our numbers are really good in our tribe. We are making our stamp on the world. And, there's so many tribes, and there's 39 tribes, federally recognized tribes in the state of Oklahoma. And, we're able to tell our story. And I think it's so important that we continue that momentum, not just as Osage people, not just as Native people, but being able to tell our stories, because we make that impact. We are so strong, and we've made it so far. So I'm really grateful for this experience. I'm grateful that I got to kind of tag along with y'all on the red carpets. That was amazing. I'm proud to be Wajaji. I'm proud to be Native American and represent everyone. This is just such an amazing opportunity. Thank you.
As a way to conclude this event, I have kindly asked if Scott would be able to render Wajaji. Scott, I don't know if you have any words that you'd like to conclude with, but I'll go ahead and pass it over to him.
Okay. So, like I'd mentioned in the beginning, I've pretty much given the majority of my life to this dance and to our songs. I started out at 14 wanting to learn how to sing, and sitting on what we refer to as platforms, listening to two Ponca men as they were taking a break, getting ready for the evening dance. And as I listened to them, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I had a choice back then. I could either dance or I could sing, but I was going to do one of them. And I said, well, I want to sing. So my stepdad, Reuben DeRoyan, he went out and he bought me the Ponca Volume 1 and 2 right off the bat. And so I listened to those nonstop. And I started going to hand games. It's one of the easier things to get into, and learning from the men that sat out there, Morris Lookout, Evan Dre Sapahoodle, and the men in that area that were singing those hand games, and gradually made my way into the powwow world. And it took me until '83 before I was able to ask, or get up enough nerve to ask Morris Lookout, who was the head singer at Hominy, if I could come help him. And he just kind of looked at me and brought me out there, and he told his lady singers, he said, I'm going to bring him out here. And like they were going to say anything about it, because he was kind of a commanding presence. And so he said, oh yeah, we know him. We've seen him sing, you know. And from there on out, from '83, I've been in that drum ever since, and haven't hardly missed, but maybe once or twice. So this song itself talks about our people, and we call ourselves Wajaji, and there's not a really good explanation of what that means, except I've heard it been said that it's like name givers. Jaja means your name. And when the French came to the Osage and made contact with the Osage, they came to us to ask us who that was up the river, and we gave them names. One of them, I teach my absentee Shawnee co-worker. I said, you know, we named you people. Oh, you did not. I said, yes, we did. I said, you guys take that sap out of that tree, and that sap is sweet, and we called you Jani. That means sweet water coming out of that tree. And so they took that, and then it got changed over to Shawnee. That's not what they call themselves, but that's what, you know, the world calls them. And I said that it was that way for all the tribes around us. A lot of them, we named them. And so we named ourselves name givers. That's where that Wajaji comes from. So I'm telling my people, after you look back at all the things that have happened to us, I'm asking my people to get up. Wajaji, Nojinda, means stand up. And that's just simple like that, but there's more meaning to it. It's like stand up and be recognized. Stand up with pride. And then Wakanda Gakabe is God made this for us. So I'm telling you, God made a way for us. We've all been told from generation to generation to generation that our old people prayed for us to still be here. And so when I thought about the words, that's what I was thinking. And like I mentioned, Van made a song, and the words of his were similar, different words, but same thoughts, you know. So when I get ready to sing this, the version I sing now is different than the one that I sent to Mo. And it's because you have to adjust when you're a singer. When you're singing by yourself, you can hit your own notes. You can hit your own range. But when you're singing with other people, they may not be able to sing that range. And so you have to bring it down a little bit and adjust it so that people can hit it and all come in with you. And so it's changed just a little bit just because of that, you know. And if you listen on the end of the movie, it sounds like, hey-yo, 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 and it repeats that all the way through there. But when we I could feel that we needed to take a breath. And in order to do that, I added one more syllable in there, one more little vocable in there. And that gave us time to breathe, you know, to do that, to hit that. So that's it. It's changed, and everybody said, that's not the same song. I said, yes, it is. It's just a little bit different. So bear with me.
Thank you so much for coming this evening. If you have any questions, feel free to come on stage. But thank you very much for coming. Have a good night. And there's more food outside. Go get yourself some to-go plates.